You brought up Grace Jones earlier, who was, I believe, your first real girlfriend, which is an interesting place to start.
Yes.
But I want to take you back to the moment where you walk into the theater with her for the Rocky premiere, and then what happened on the way out.
I'd been with Grace for about 2-3 years.
Who was as big as it gets?
Grace was huge. She was in a Bond movie. She was in a Conan movie. It's How I Met Arnold. And, I was with her in New York, and I started studying acting with her acting coach. And then I went out for a boxing movie. It turned out to be Rocky IV, and I got the role. And suddenly this kind of nerdy chemical engineering student who she was dating, who was also a fighter, he ends up, being on his way to movie stardom. But I didn't know that. And I went to the premiere of Rocky IV in Westwood. And there was a big premiere with elephants and marching bands, what have you. And there was a limo, and coming out of the limo was Grace in one of her great big hats and looking fabulous. And people were trying to get me out of the way to take pictures of her, like, who is this guy? Get him out of the way. I hadn't seen the movie. I just did some ADR when you do dialogue replacement. And I'd seen some black and white print, bad print. I thought it looked like shit. It was like, all this work for this? It's like crap. And then the lights went down, and these two boxing gloves came up, Russian, Soviet, and American collided. And I remember sitting there like, I was frozen in 90 minutes, whatever long the movie is. And the lights came up, and people applauding, and we were sitting there next to Stallone somewhere. But I realized everybody was looking at me somehow. And when I came out, people are taking pictures of me, and they were more interested in me than Grace because, she was a big star, but she was kind of old news. It's always the new star that people are interested in. And it took me 3 or 4 years, I think, to get my bearings back. It was a crazy time in my life. It was wonderful, but crazy.
Explain what she was doing with your clothes when she once missed a recording session at the studio.
Well, she was a temperamental girlfriend, and she had a lot of late night parties, and I had to get up and train with Stallone every morning at 7 o'clock, twice a day for 6 months. And I started looking a bit tired, and he was like, you can stay at my place. He moved his sister out of the guest house, and I was staying up at his house, full with bodyguards and whatever it was. And then Grace got upset. So one day the maid calls me and says, "Oh, sir, you have to come back." I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, ma'am is burning all your clothes." Well, it turned out I had all these, fashion clothes from New York. Johnny Versace made me like a special leather jacket when he first came to America and all of that. And it was all burnt. It was all in the fireplace, like ashes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Another time after you guys broke up, she showed up looking for you carrying a gun.
Yeah. There were a few things like that. She, what happened was once the producers of a film she was in, they called me and said, "Can you please help us get Grace to the set because everybody's standing by and she's 5 hours late or 8 hours late, but she's armed, she's got a gun, and she doesn't want to come out." So I had to go up and take the gun out, take the clip out, and she went back to work.
You helped her through some low points, she said.
Yeah, I helped her through. Yeah, she was going through a real tough time with, a little bit of drug abuse and stuff like that, and I helped her a little bit there. And she was fun, I had a house up in Mount Olympus, and I remember once I was there with I was single after breaking up with her, and I was kind of a young hot movie star, and I had a few, girlfriends here and there, and.
You said a few girlfriends. From what I understand, you said you had 4 and 5 ways.
Well, yeah, that was with her, but okay. No, but I had somebody up there, and I was in bed with somebody, and there's this honking, screaming outside, and I was like, "What the hell?" And intercom, and it's Grace. "Dolph, darling, I'm here." It's like, "Well, I'm a little busy now." "It's okay, I don't mind. Can I come up?" It's like, No, you can't. Well, okay, then I'm going to yell and scream till the cops show up out here. Okay. And she had to come. Well, she wanted to come and join us, but I said no, forget it. But, I got caught up in it a little bit, but never really that bad because I always had to train for my movies and stuff like that. And I got more, actually, it was more drinking for me that got me later.
How about best Michael Jackson story?
Well, the one thing I remember about him was that I was at the Motown 25th anniversary.
So where he moonwalked for the first time.
Yeah,
right?
moonwalk. Yeah, I remember that. I was there actually backstage with Grace. He was doing the moonwalk, and I remember I said something to Grace like, "What's the big deal with this guy? How come he doesn't seem like nothing special?" And she's like, "Don't you ever say that about Michael. He's going to be a huge star." And of course he was. This is before Thriller and all that.
Explain the situation where Andy Warhol comes up to you.
Andy, yeah, I just came to New York with Grace, 1983, and I was at some club. Club A was called in those days, Upper East Side. And I was just walking around Grace's doing something else, and some little guy with white hair comes up and goes, "Hi, what are you famous for?" And I'm like, "Nothing, as far as I know." He says, "Can I take a picture?" So he took a picture with a small camera, and then he says, "I'll put you in my magazine." I'm like, "Oh, magazine? Okay." Grace comes up and goes, "Hey, Andy, how are you?" And then I realized it was Andy Warhol. Even I knew who he was. And I got to meet him and know him a little bit. And
He tried to get you to take your clothes off, didn't he?
yeah, well, he supposedly, him and this guy, Chris Marcos, who was his photographer, I heard they had some kind of bet how quickly or if they could get new models to take all their clothes off in the photo shoot. I didn't know that, but I never got down to to nothing. I didn't go that far. I think they were scared of Grace, so they didn't want to push it with me.